happen at some point.
All right, let's try this.
He just likes to scare me. Damn it. I can't get
Oh, yeah.
these
Welcome to
together.
Be Awesome Together with the lovely Tyra Burton. That's okay, cool. And the Rock on a Podcasting, Charles McFall. Thank you, Tyra. Thank you for tossing back the intro. And tonight we are being awesome with Clyde Gilbert, who I've been introduced to as a Concourse Stage director, but I've been instructed, just come to the show. Don't ask me questions. It's awesome. It's like, cool, man. We'll talk about everything else. It's great. We were having some riveting conversations about marketing and budgeting, which at first I was going to make that a funny joke. It's like, I know, these are real things people need to know. So we might jump into how, as creators, you need to know your money. But before that, I've only known Tyra as Mrs. Tyra Burton and Shane as Mr. Tyra Burton their entire lives. That's how I met them. And didn't think there was a life before Shane. I'm hearing the scandalous stories of Clyde's known Tyra since she was single. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought she was just born and there was Shane. I don't know. So, so we're going to go all over.
Clyde had to play in a ballroom at Dragon Con for me to meet Shane.
Right.
Play music or put on a play like Peter Pan?
No, play music.
Just play music. We paint the canvas. You know, we lay the canvas and everybody else paints on it. So
I just painted a wedding. It was great.
Right.
I dig it. And you own Greenwood Studios. Is that right?
I own Greenwood Studio. Right.
Yep. And you've been doing music for a little while, I would say.
About 25 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a few.
And I'm sure there are many other things that you get into. So, Tyra, where do we start? There's so much to pick from here.
I don't know. So, are you ready for Dragon Con?
No. No. Are we ever ready, or did we just cry? Did we just cry on the way down and then say, well, we've been doing this for a while and they probably won't fire me this year, but I'll do my best.
It'll be fine.
It is funny. You joke a little bit, but there is a little bit of that technically every year directors have to be invited back, like every single year. And hopefully we get this letter in the mail that says you've been invited back. This year I had some address issues. I'm like, they haven't said they're going to fire me. And that thing would be a pretty big deal. I mean, I would think I'd get walked into the office to be talked to. But
right.
I finally, in December, I'm like, is there not a letter coming my way? And no, we sent it. Oh, good, because I didn't get it. But
well, the exact same thing happened to me. And so I called the office and I said, guys, is everything okay? And they said, well, yeah, everything's okay. Why are you calling? I was like, well, I haven't gotten my letter this year. And, I usually stay in some version of trouble, with folks.
Concourse.
I said, oh, no. It went out. I said, no, I didn't get it. They were like, okay, well, we'll send it out again then. And that was that. But yeah, there was some sweaty moments. And it was like, what did I do this time?
This time for both of you.
Kevin Cafferty pops in here. Dragon Con puts an Outlook meeting on Charles's calendar with him, his manager, and HR. My manager is Regina Kirby. So if I get a surprise meeting with her, she is amazing. But if you get on her bad side, you deserved it, and you're going to
put on your spanking pants. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's one of the people I actually fear. So yes.
A little fear is a good thing.
Oh yeah.
So how did you go ahead, Charles? No, you first.
I want first. No, you said okay.
No, you go.
Beauty before age.
Definitely. Okay, so why did actually I get beauty and age? Never mind.
I was going to say that. You just could have gone.
Well, my brain is turning it at the same time. So how did you end up the Concourse Stage director?
Oh, that's kind of an interesting story. Way back in 2002, I believe. I believe it was 2002.
The before times.
The Concourse Stage was a very small Fender Passport little amplifier and a chair. And of course,
Yep.
we were brand new into the convention. We were really, jazzed and excited for it because it was kind of a homecoming for us, as we grew up in it. But the passport just died in the middle of Voltaire's show. He was performing, and we were coming up next. And I was like, oh, no, we can't do this. And so I talked to Paul Cashman, who was the director at the time, and I said, by the way, we have a bus with an entire PA in it parked in the garage down there, and how about if we bring our PA up here and we have someone to run it? At that time, we had a roadie, and that way we can have a real PA, and we'll just take care of it. So that began a tradition of us doing so. And as I got more and more involved, and I'm not the performer. If you know Emerald Rose, other people are the performers. I just kind of sit around and played with my hair, and
You shook your nuts really well.
I shook my nuts very, very well. Made sure that I wore the sort of skirt that I could, and all the things that you have to do for marketing purposes. And but as I got more and more involved, the convention came to me in an official capacity in about 2013, 2014. They asked me, and at first I said, well, I really don't think that I would be able to have the time to devote to, running the Concourse Stage and doing the things that we've done, even though I've run the sound and, done this stuff in the background. And they said, well, we really want you to do it. And they were in the process of splitting up what was originally a very large department in the concourse, and they eventually wound up splitting it up into 3. And they said, well, if you don't take it, then we don't know if we're going to. And so I said, oh, well, I'll go ahead and take it. So that was in 2014.
Okay.
And basically we've kind of built it up from there and secured kind of our position as still the forefront of musical entertainment and fandom. And I'm pretty clear about that, is that we kind of built it from the ground floor. And DragonCon and the management of DragonCon with Pat Henry and the board of directors there, and then Rachel and Mandy and Regina really gave me a lot of leeway and a lot of freedom in order to run that stage, the way that I had an idea to do so. And it's been great. It's been great the whole time.
Misty Head says, I didn't realize that you only started that role in 2014.
Officially. Yeah, I did officially, but we were a fixture on the stage because Emerald Rose provided the PA, and to this day, officially, Emerald Rose still provides the PA and the sound on the Concourse Stage. It's just I'm the head since everyone else has retired and moved to other states. But it is still the equipment that we toured with. I have it here in the studio all the time. And so Emerald Rose still brings the Concourse sound forward. So, and I think that's pretty cool.
John Meyer pops in and says, a man after my heart that just happens to have an amp lying around. You know what? That's how I got more involved at the time as a podcasting track. And I was looking more to be a speaker and face of it. But the year I went, it was just as podcasting was just duct tape soundboards and trying to get this broadcast or this record. It was just, but then I'm like, can't y'all get better equipment? And like the guy who was not running the track, but somebody involved in the track almost got like tears in his eyes. Like, you don't understand what we have to put together. Like, you don't know this, I guess, but I'm local. And like you, Clyde, I had PA systems, all kind of stuff from live production and just you guys. I mean, I'm sitting over here with a in-ear monitor set right now I don't use and a Behringer Euro board. You collect gear and like I will bring it to you and like what? And so I'm holding like big PV speakers and everything, and they were blown away. And now I'm just like, I'm gonna use at least half of what the con provides because I don't have to put on a big production show that has to sound like a big production show. We have to stream it more than we do in the room. So but sometimes you have to have that gear around. So 10 years though, just because you went, I don't want this to fall apart. I mean, I'm inferring from that story, you were like, hey, I feel like right now either I take it on or it's just not going to happen anymore.
Well, they were, yeah, it was at a, they were at a bit of a crossroads, I believe. And Paul Cashman and I have known each other for many, many, many years. As a matter of fact, he and Pat Henry were the ones who gave, Emerald Rose that first chance. And honestly, the whole thing came about was because I personally got tired of not going to Dragon Con. And we were touring, we were doing other shows and everything. And I was like, guys, we're a bunch of dweebs. We're a bunch of old gaming buddies. We've been, we used to tell people on stage, there's over 100 years of gaming experience,
Truth.
on stage. And that was when we were much younger. And actually our wives got really mad at us. And that was the whole reason that we started the band, was because we were gaming too much. And so I said, I'd like to go back to Dragon Con, let's see if we can get the band, to perform there. And it was like an explosion went off the first year. So it was, we were really blessed to be in the right place at the right time. And we had the PA. So
it does help if you're like, I'll do it and I'll bring all the gear. Don't worry about
Right.
it.
Oh, we're fine.
Done.
I still remember telling Logan, you'll enjoy it. I promise.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our people are there. It'll be fine.
That was pretty much what I told the guys was, we already had a pretty good following in Atlanta as a Celtic band. But I knew that when if the band came to the convention, that there would be like a the Venn diagram would actually merge into, into it, and superimpose itself, I guess. And, being the marketing guy in the band, it paid off, and it was a great thing. And here we are 24 years later, and still having a great time with it. So
80,000 of our closest friends.
Right.
I still miss you opening and closing the con on the Concourse stage. I have to tell you that.
Yeah. And there are times that when I miss the performance, it's like, but I really, really like to help put the show on. I get my best satisfaction, honestly, watching everyone having a good time. If they're dancing and they're getting sweaty and they're going back to the bar for drinks and they're singing along, especially if they're finding a new band or a new experience to add to everything that has, their memories and everything that has already happened up to that point, then I know that I've done my job. I know that if the band's having a good time and they're looking over at the crowd and everyone is having a blast and they have new fans and they have a brand new audience, then we've done our job right. So, and that's what I love, honestly, as much as anybody clapping for me on stage. So,
well, and you have more stages now. I mean, you guys have multiple Concourse stages.
Actually, we had two stages, and we have a Concourse Presents show that actually goes on in the National Ballroom North in the Hyatt Regency. We did have two stages. There were several reasons why we consolidated and pulled it back to one stage. Number one, the second Concourse stage kind of wandered around. Like we had different areas, over the years that we used it for. But honestly, the crowd size was always an issue.
Yep.
And like we had it there on the Overlook in the Westin, and we nearly collapsed the bridge one year with the crowd. So
Good
after a
Charles, we haven't done that.
no, don't do that.
No, we haven't. Thank you. Yes.
No, that was my bad. That was totally my fault. And so I brought Voltaire into a very small room, and which I keep doing, by the way. And
It just likes to feel like it's filled. If it's a small room and it's filled, you got to feel good.
Oh yeah. And so, but the decision was made to bring it back to a single stage. Number one, so that there was a single spot where people would be able to congregate and meet. And that way, also, it was a kindness to our bands because they have to schlep all this equipment.
Oh, that's true.
They were having they had to go to the Westin or they had to go to the Hilton. A couple of years we had it over outside of the dealer's room in the America's Mart
I remember
building.
those.
That. And so we just kind of made a decision after taking a look at it and saying, let's just bring it all back home. And it really was an idea to get it back to the more intimate experience that we originally had, because as if we kept building and building and building on the stage and making it bigger and bigger and bigger, it was beginning to lose its unique quality of main stage bands also being able to play on a smaller stage with a different audience. So
kind of like in TV Unplugged, as they did through the 90s and early 2000s.
That was my original idea, and at the beginning I was kind of strict on the let's make it acoustic, but as a musician,
it didn't need to be acoustic, but as long as it's like you said, you had to be in the room moment. That's really what you're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's an opportunity for bands that do not play in a more intimate environment, and many times I like taking them out of their comfort zone and kind of getting them nose to nose with the crowd, so they're not standing up on a stage and they don't have things in between them. And by and large, they love it. Like they want to come back and play on that stage, every year. And it's a different audience. It's a totally different audience. So.
Who
are you excited for this year?
Oh, let's see. We have we try and bring new blood in, every year, and we have to balance that off against, why didn't you bring my favorite band back for the 47th year?
Well, Voltaire is coming, of course.
Well, he's kind of the emeritus. Yeah, he's
always
here. There. Cruise Shadows are always coming along every year. We have some new bands though. There's an act out of Brooklyn. It's a lady and a gentleman called Charming Disaster, and they're really really fun. They have like a folk goth sort of a groove to them. They play an electric ukulele and a foot drum, different things like that. But it's a very vampiric, old school kind of, throwback to the old goth, look, but they have a real interesting folk edge to their music. I think people are really going to like it.
Well, that's cool. Charles, I just threw a link to their page in the chat if you want to throw it in our rest of our chats. Mm-hmm. I don't have the power tonight. He does.
Right.
Nope, wrong one.
I'm always really, really excited. We do bring main stage bands, who are able to, who are appropriate for our stage. And we do those usually for 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. performances, which is the last performance on the concourse. We really don't bleed over into the main stage, shows or anything like that. But Vision Video will be back on Friday night. They will shake the building. And last year their show was the biggest show I think we've ever had on the concourse. And they are just, if you haven't seen them, they are electrifying. And so we're going to have kind of a house party sort of a vibe to that one.
Nice.
There will be several hundred people in that tiny little space. So.
I know my friends, I don't really get off to go. I should say I don't make time to go see the music. I really should. But my friends gush over the Cybertronic Spree and like Steam Powered Giraffe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love.
They were wonderful. They can't go on my stage. They are really too big.
So okay, in that case, where would they go? How does that play in the con?
Well, they're main stage bands, and so they would play in the Centennial Ball, one of the Centennial ballrooms, or in one of the large ballrooms in the Marriott, and especially
that's one of the 3,000 seat ballrooms type of deal.
Yeah, you would need to have, because they are such a draw that they're going to, there's no way that I would be able to put them. Plus, I can't accommodate any of their, I can't accommodate them on that smaller stage there. Folks were asking about Steam Powered Giraffe. The last band of that caliber that we had, I think on the stage was Abney Park. Years ago, and it really did become like a fire marshal sort of an issue, which is what we also run into, is that we have capacity issues down there. So
yeah, the fire marshal left you.
Oh yeah.
In a special way.
Speed dial.
The fire marshal loves us too, but it's because of Trader Fix.
Well, now I know we have a ace up the sleeve. Anytime we see the fire marshal come by, it's like, wait, I heard Clyde is over. He's over capacity. Go get him. Don't come to my room.
That happened to me last year. I was in the International Ballroom running one of the Concourse Presents shows, and my second texted me, and he said, I need you here in 5 minutes.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And it was all caps, fire marshal. So I said, okay, I have to leave now. And I left, someone else to run the board over there for that show, and got over there. And the fire marshal was literally waiting for me with his hands on his hips at the bottom of the escalator after I was able to get through the crowd that were sitting on the steps of the stairs to the escalator. And that was for the Vision video show. So
loved having you guys, but thanks.
Well, and that was one of the most fun shows that I think that we've ever done down there. And it was literally like a house party. The crowd was literally nose to nose with Dusty. They could have licked him if they wanted to. So
glad they didn't.
Right. Well, anything goes after 10. I don't care as long as they actually keep their bits covered. It's up to them. You tell little Timmy what he just saw if he's there. So,
did you see what Andrew just posted?
Yeah. Ooh, wrong button. Well, there's divisionvideoband.com.
They are.
And then fire marshals know Clyde is smoking.
So does the Atlanta police.
So I know this was before your time. Well, at least as director, and they definitely went on a concourse. But is it true that Guar got banned from the hotels? Not from the con, but the hotels.
I heard that they did. I may or may not have been at that show.
Plausible deniability.
Right. Not in an official capacity. I was just an urchin wandering around in the crowd. They got banned from the hotels for being Guar. And that was what I understood. And but we've had others. I think we had the Misfits come through years ago, and that was a spectacle as well. So
I can imagine.
Long before my time, and in an official capacity, I have absolutely no authority to choose bands. So do not email me and ask me why your band didn't make it. So.
Okay, so that's a good question, because I know you can go on as an artist. There's a separate application for artists to apply, and I thought you maybe did, because I was going to say, if I was I'm not, but if I'm an up and coming musician band that wants to be there, what are the kind of things you look for? But if it's not in your hands, then
there is.
How do you put the show together?
We have a committee. We have a performance committee. The reason that I'm not involved in that, and it is a holdover, is because, my band was, Emerald Rose was like the pet house band, and it really wasn't for me to be in the decision-making process.
I get that.
But the process is for main stage and house bands. I know that the process begins with applicability. Does the band have, does an act, will they mesh with our crowd? They don't necessarily have to be based in fandom, but there is the appeal there. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Here Come the Mummies. They were a main stage band, and they are actually made up of members of very, 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 very successful bands, and that's why they wear mummy costumes, is because they're really not allowed to, perform unless they're completely covered up. But they're just a get down and blow you out the water rock, funk, R&B, serious fun band. They're not really based in fandom, but they are, because they dress up like mummies.
Yeah.
And and they do, they write songs about letting your freak flag fly, and all of the things. It's really cool. He rides a little tricycle around with a freak flag, and does. But if you've never seen, but that's an example. Steam Powered Giraffe, that you had mentioned earlier, they're within, a genre of fandom, and that's a really beautiful thing that has come up in the past 20 or 25 years, is that there is a genre of music that is applicable to fandom.
Yep.
And there's a circuit, and bands are able to actually, travel that circuit and perform at various, larger cons. That didn't exist, 20 or 25 years ago, which is a testament to how we've come to the forefront, and into the mainstream now. But the selection criteria, as I understand it, is applicability, availability, and whether or not we don't compensate any of the bands. They have to ask, to come to perform. But with that, part of my job with the bands that perform, on the concourse, is that I make sure that they are able to sell their merchandise to vend right there at the stage. Because the con is so large, many times it's hard for fans to be able to get to the band tables over in the Marriott, because they're just so busy and there's so many things going on. So I try and make that opportunity for bands to, and kind of, we make sure that they're able to sell during their shows there on the concourse. But with that selection, filky, fanish, goth. We have another band coming in called Killbillies, and they are really, really interesting. They're like a newgrass meets. I would think of like the Lumineers or the Decemberists, and a lot of their styling. Very, very unusual, neat band coming in, and that's more of the new blood that comes through. But in the selection process, occasionally I'll get sent a link, and it's like, well, what do you think about these guys? Can you use them? Could you think you could use them on the concourse stage? And the variety of music that has come through is amazing. And so that selection process is, how do we best serve our fans? And how do we best serve, the people who are coming to the stage who want to hear newer music, but they want it to be applicable in some way. And of course, they need YouTube. They need to have some sort of a media presence or something like that. It's not like, dude, we're so good. My brother told me we'd be great there.
The mom said it was awesome.
Right, man. So
we need some social credit.
Now, here's a question. I understand what you're saying, because I do the same thing. Is I need to see you. Like, if I can hear or see you, I can get a feel for what you're going to do on my panels or with your show. I don't necessarily look at the numbers, but for bands, do the numbers of downloads or followers or anything like that play into being chosen?
So, at times it does, and we do get many suggestions from, this band has played, at, let's say, PAX or, one of the other larger conventions, and they want to come and perform. There was a band called Master Sword several years ago they were a metal gaming, they were a Zelda metal band, and so they were really awesome. And the thing is that they had a built-in like rabid fan base that came along with them, and people were like, we're so excited this band is coming. I'd never heard of them, I'd never heard of the band or anything else, but when I saw them, I was like, oh yeah, they belong here. They should definitely be here. And so, but we're trying, the idea is to try and expand, always to try and expand the genre itself. Several years ago, 4 years ago, probably, we had a filk hip hop, a hardcore hip hop
awesome.
band called Wreck the System, and that's a part of the diversity that I encourage in selecting the bands is there's kind of an expectation as to what type of music you will hear at a convention and at a larger convention. And to give I heavily supported bringing in something that no one had ever heard of before, and they blew the top off of the place. And then unfortunately the band went their separate ways not too long afterwards.
No.
But it's that idea that there's so many different voices now in fandom that it's hard to kind of narrow it down to 15 or 20 bands. And every year it's there's a filtering and a sieving that comes through. And it's like, well, we'll give these folks a chance, but really it's up to the band, to have, to find their audience. And then there are a lot of bands who come to Dragon Con specifically just to listen to music. They want to drink, they want to listen to music, and that's what they want to do. So our criteria changes from year to year. It also depends on who applies, each year.
I'm sure. So a few questions from the live audience here.
Yay.
Drew Greenberg says, which bands do you wish would apply that haven't yet? Or not like this year, but in general. Like,
you mean like my dream bands?
Yes.
Yeah. Which bands would you love to have come to Dragon Con?
They Might Be Giants.
They would be awesome.
So good.
The Arrogant Worms. If you've ever heard of them, they're an old school like comedy kind of folk band. Wow. If I have dream bands coming through, the Rock Bottom Remainders, which is Stephen King, and like massive authors who come in like under disguise, like to have Cake, that'd be a lot of fun, bands like that.
That'd be fun.
But if you want to go super old guard, if we can rouse them out of their stupor, Kiss would totally.
Honestly,
we would be there.
This con is all about fandom. Kiss would fit in. I mean, they would do
quite nicely.
Oh yeah.
Well,
we would have to. We would actually probably have to get like the Civic Center for that.
Yeah, it'd have to be something special. Or it'd be a secret event.
We have had separately ticketed events in the past, and they really did not. They didn't translate all that well. It seemed like it's because it was trying to bring in an act just for one show, and then they come in and then they leave is kind of hard to do, from a logistical standpoint. But other bands that that if I wished, if I had my wish for bands to come in, we could go way down that rabbit hole, and think about, and a lot of the greats and a lot of the bands that were my dream bands actually performed Dragon Con.
Right, back in the day.
Way back, like when Hawkwind came back in the late 80s, and Michael Moorcock, was involved in all of that. But in order to, for bands to come through that would be appropriate for like the Concourse Stage, most of the bands that I have said, ooh, I'd like to have those guys, they've come through already, and it's awesome. A perfect example is a couple of years ago we had Jason Charles Miller come through, and he was with a band called Godhead, many years ago, and we're a very, very different band, and now he's a dark country artist. He's actually a genius on top of all of this. But but when he came through, he was so excited to come back because he hadn't performed at Dragon Con in like 20 years, and he thought nobody liked him anymore. And but he came back through, and he's just a brilliant musician, and he's also he's a voice actor for like Attack on Titan and Gundam, Iron-Blooded Orphans. He's a massively successful voice actor, and he's like a multidisciplinary guy. And I was so excited to have him come back because I've known the guy for years. And so I kind of, if you ask me what my dream bands are, a lot of them have already come through. But Devo, I wouldn't kick him out.
Somebody said Weird Al, and I would have to say yes to that.
Oh yeah, Weird Al would be. He is
geek music.
Well, he is the reigning king. Yeah, he is the reigning king.
Yeah.
He is the filth god. He is the absolute filth god.
Yeah.
But he's like, he's so far away from that, and I don't even think Dragon Con would be able to handle the crowd.
No, we are his. There are many of his people at Dragon Con.
Oh yeah. That's what I've told him, that he could come and sit in my lap and sing on the Concourse Stage, and it would be a small audience, and we would make sure that only 20 or 30,000 people would listen.
Yeah,
so.
just a few. It's just Uncle Al. It's
right.
No big deal.
One of my favorites I've been trying to figure out how to get here is the Punk Rock Factory, and they do a lot of geek covers and in fact, Tyra, you've probably heard some of the music, because for now called Fandom Face Off, my game show, I always play this hype list, and most of it's them, and they're covering Disney. So and people are like, "Wait, that's Power Rangers," but it's really cool. I mean, on top of being Power Rangers cool, it's really cool. It's like, yeah, it's Pump. Man, I can't say it. Punk Pop Factory.
Punk Rock Factory.
Punk Rock, yeah, I get it.
You just mentioned Power Ranger. Charles, you mentioned Power Rangers. Now, one of the things that happened on the Concourse Stage, and it was a literal last minute thing. It was maybe about 10 years ago. We had a Power Ranger perform on the stage.
Okay.
Steven Schuyler is also a singer-songwriter and a fairly successful musician. And his manager, like out of the blue, said he really wants to play some music, and he come play on the stage. And I was like, this guy's a Power Ranger, and I'm not up on Power Rangers. I was raising kids at the time, but I was too busy raising kids to pay attention. But he was the Purple Ranger. I can't really remember. The Gold Ranger, I think, is who he was. But
I had just had it.
Super nice guy, and it was like one of these out of the blue things of, okay, so we've had Power Rangers on the, on the stage. Peter Beagle, who's a dear old friend of mine, is also a phenomenal blues musician, and he's graced our stage a couple of times, as a singer, and
nice.
So I mean, we've had a lot of interesting folks come through, over the years.
We need to get Jensen Ackles, huge Supernatural, right? TV show actor. Now, of course, he's in The Boys,
right?
But his blues music it's phenomenal. I really love it.
Yeah, I have an open invitation to any guest who want, any media guest who wants to come down and play. We will make room. We will definitely make room for for them to do it. So I almost had Tom Kenny convinced to come down and do some stuff, and then his agent was like, "Are you mad?"
It's Dragon. You're supposed to do crazy things.
I live to be in trouble. I'll ask anybody to do anything. Tyra can tell you. It's like,
absolutely.
So if they want to come down and play, you can come down and play. But we've had some interesting things happen like that. And in the future, there's no telling. We had Nerf Herder the last time that they came. The Dragon Con was one of the more unhinged shows that I've ever seen in my life. And
that says a lot, by the way.
They actually wrote a song for Dragon Con called "At the Con." Actually, it's on my it's on the Concourse Stage YouTube channel, and that's the opening. That's the opening video is called "At the Con," and they wrote that song after they came to Dragon Con for the first time, and they performed on the stage, and they drank an entire case of beer during their performance, and they got about halfway through their performance, and they said, "We're out of beer," and on cue, about 75 airplane bottles of liquor came flying out of the crowd.
Oh no! And don't throw things at Dragon Con, people. They can throw
liquor. I mean, as long as it's capped. I collect the tithe. Okay, so that's. And, this is my church. But that was a lot of fun. That show was so much fun and completely unexpected. I had no idea what was going to happen, and it was probably the third largest crowd that we've ever had there on stage. So
Nice. Now, we do have another question, but before that, Andrew pipes in again. Andrew, apparently your number one fan. Clyde and the team have done such a good job of bringing returning favorites, introducing great new acts none of us know, and still springing great surprises. No idea how they manage it. So
that's how he gets in trouble every year.
I just make the sound go, and I take no responsibility for anything that may or may not have happened before that.
And he already covered he collects his tithe, and that helps a lot. So because we may have covered some of this already, when you get to niche genres, I'm a little out of touch. John asks, has there been any nerdcore? I'm not sure what nerdcore is.
I would say probably the band Master Sword is what I would consider nerdcore. We do have now, I believe, some main stage bands that are coming in. I'm not really connected to the main stage acts, other than the ones who come and play on my stage. But I believe we've got some nerdcore bands. I think there's a band called Health that's coming in. I think that will be classified as nerdcore. But we also have to balance off. And I have to say this, and I have to say this at Dragon Con every year about 5,000 times, is our main, I don't want to call it a constraint, but it is a main requirement is we have to have bands that can play at a lower volume because we do share space with fan tables, which is always a whole lot of fun. The One Ring and are always, we're always there. And it's always a lot of fun, but we do an artsy Atlanta Radio Music Theater, of course, have always been there. But we do
you're right outside the art show too.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, that's where
yes, we are right outside the art show. And now with 2 bars usually, right next to the stage. So in case you just don't want to wait that extra 5 minutes, last year they put up another bar, and, I first asked them, I said, this is such a small space. Why do we need 2 bars down here? And they said, well, because they make a lot of money down here. And your crowd they really like to drink. And they don't want to go upstairs to another bar to get it. So we're going to put 2 bars down here. And as it turned out, it worked out pretty well because we had even more drunken debauchery down there, which
fabulous.
Encourages after 10. So
yes, after 10.
Right.
Before that, we're all little angels.
Well, we're PG-13, and that's where we have to, and that's where we have to keep it. But yeah, we are right outside the art show, and Philk is in Hanover Hall, which is literally just just right around the corner there. And so I kind of like to we kind of like to treat it as our little our own little domain down there between Philk and the Concourse Stage. And Philkers I do have some Philk acts that come that perform on the stage.
So I thought the word Philk, like we have a Philk track, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it was a play on a mistake that was made at a con many, many years ago where they misspelled folk and it just became this living meme. But you've used it kind of as a genre type word tonight, it feels like. So what am I missing?
It is definitely a genre. The lines have blurred over the years. Philk was the original. It was the original fan music, and it goes all the way back to the LA Science Fiction Convention from back in what was it, the 1930s? Larry Niven, the author, the writing god of all time, is a Philker, and he's been a Philker for about 60 years. And when he comes to Dragon Con, many times you can just find him hanging out in the Philk room. So, but Philk was the original fan music, and it was based on the literary works, and then it kind of branched out from there. And Philk bands now are not your grandmother's Philk band, sitting in a basement, playing the Ladybird song for the 500th time or something along those lines. There are unbelievable musical groups that and they still confine, they don't confine, but they emphasize their songwriting that is based on fanish pop culture, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, And so I guess
Firefly, maybe.
Firefly, and that was our foray into folk. But it seems to be, in what my opinion of that and my take on it is that it's closer to the literary or television source. And then there's music that has kind of sprung up outside of that. That's not necessarily folk, but it's music that's in fandom, and in the and as fandom has become basically mainstream, there's so much room for other music that isn't maybe necessarily tied to literary works or television shows. And I think that's where it's really exploded. And DJs, have absolutely exploded on the scene as well. So there's still a lot of room. And as we go more and more mainstream, you're starting to see that those genre lines are blurring in a major way. So
okay.
So Charles, we have a folk performer on our track.
Yeah, no, I figured that out from the definitions as were provided by Professor Gilbert. Thank you.
Right.
I appreciate that. That's great education.
So Mark Gunn is over on our track, and he started with Brobdingnagian bards.
I can never say it. Say it again.
Right.
Brobdingnagian bards.
Very good.
Bards.
There we go.
I have actually Mark, Andrew, and I go back
So far back.
way back. I started talking to them about 1999 or so about the genre, and that's how I met. I met Mark actually through the late great mp3.com.
Yes.
I remember that site. Yeah,
way back in the 90s, and that's how Mark and I met. And I started telling him, look, you guys seem to be like, you've got these goofy songs, and they are just custom made for Filk. And so after a couple of years, I talked him into applying, and then I was asked at another convention, what do you think about these guys? What do you think that they'll do? And I was like, bring them in. I think they're, they have a huge crowd that follows them online as it is. And here we are 25 years later, and they're still going strong. Mark Gunn, though, takes it one step further, and not just Filk, but he is one of those people who he's a great example of how to make your art work for you.
Yes.
And he is one of the prime folks who actually I point other artists to about how to actually generate income and make a living doing this. And he's one of the best people out there to talk to. And he has stayed true to his Filk roots, at the same time. So
now it does sound like you stay really busy during the con, but it sounds like we should do a panel maybe next year where you come to the digital media track and talk about how creators need to learn how to not just manage their money, own their finances, because of a lot of what you were talking about pre-show about how the music world works now for digital media and how we create.
Right.
And then marketing, you talked about, how to sell yourself, which is a very difficult thing to do.
It's really hard to separate yourself, in many cases from the art, from the business, because, the art is heart and business is head. And I think that there are so many artists out there who are not able to realize their potential because they don't have the tools, or and in the arts, there is, kind of this idea that if you think too much about the money side of,
or sell out, or you lose your soul,
somehow we're profaning it, or we're tainting it. But I will tell you from personal experience that the muse wants you to be successful.
Because how else can you do it?
Right.
The band and the person inspiring you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is something that there's a huge hole, and Mark has done a good job, on his own. I think that he has some panels that he does as well. My background is in finance, and so that's where, when I was a grown up back in last century, and that was, my background was, I was a stockbroker. I came out of the financial industry. I totally backed into the music business. So it was really because my friends, asked me to do it. And here we are, all this time later, and, we're still doing it in a way.
Yeah, a little
No.
a little fairy sprinkled some dust. Oh yeah, little fairy sprinkled some dust. And we have a marketing panel this year. Marketing is not a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
That we're gonna help out with.
It's not, people.
Right. But yeah, I think the marketing and the business end is something that that even music majors, in school, when they're going, when my son is a music major and he's terrible at this, and a lot of people are like, I don't have time for this. It takes time away from my work or from my art or anything else. But I can tell you from personal experience, dragging in after a 2-week tour and not managing our money very well, and then having to explain to my wife why I didn't have any money, was the trial by fire that we needed in order to get it done. But there's so many things that go along with it. I think that a panel or a series of panels would be a great idea, for that.
Well, I know, Tyra, you have a dream of putting on a workshop.
I do.
In the future.
I want to do a creator, like, huge event where you can go in and get your headshots done. You can talk to somebody about your branding. You can talk to artists. You can bounce off ideas for stuff. If you need to get your pitch down, that there would be people to help you with your pitch, and just network and help each other, because I think actors, musicians, digital creators all have that need to be able to brand themselves and brand what you're doing, and people don't know how. I can't tell you how many people don't have good headshots. Mm-hmm. That when I'm using with promo, I know we're gonna take care of that this year. I'm gonna corner you and take one.
Take my picture.
It's like, hi, honey, stand over there. It'll be fine.
Not like that. No, not like that. No.
Let's do that again. But I just think that it would be a great networking event to do, that so many of the creatives at Dragon could take advantage of, and it's like the perfect thing to do on a Wednesday or Thursday night.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also we have so much talent. There is so much talent that comes to the convention. Yep. Like, this guy over here who's in his Gandalf outfit, maybe a 20-year MBA, with Saatchi and Saatchi, or something along those lines, and you have no idea, because this guy's coming to stay drunk for 5 days with 80,000 of his closest friends. But there's such an enormous depth of knowledge and resources that are just in the crowd that that can be pulled upon, and you have no idea. We have absolutely no idea who's out there underneath all that makeup. And it's
true.
Gods walk among us. We just don't know it, I think. So.
And goddesses.
And goddesses.
No, I think that's the great thing about Dragon Con, because you see a lot of times, like particularly hip hop artists in Atlanta will sneak down and come.
T-Pain,
we'll just come in and have a good time,
And he's always in disguise, but I know that it's him. So, but yeah, and it is one of those. It's one of those situations where you really don't know who's going to show up.
No.
And they really. I think that's part of the beauty of Dragon Con is, really the superstars blend into the crowd just as much as anybody else. Brandy Mahara used to come, every year, and he cosplayed as like Glenn from from Walking Dead.
Walking Dead, yeah.
He was just another dweeb in the crowd, and it was lovely. So.
Well, and I think one of the beautiful things about Dragon is that you could ride down the elevator with somebody, and people are in general cool about it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just like,
I had a great time with Tracy Lords riding on the elevator at one time.
I bet you did.
She told me exactly how much she liked my kilt, and I will remember.
Did she kilt check you?
Yes, of course. Jeez.
Very good.
It was a professional inquiry.
Kids, Google it.
But consensual, we'd like to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't have to pay. It was.
That is fabulous.
The things that go on at Dragon Con. I've heard so many legends of people cleaning up leftover undergarments and all kind of things. I'm like, that's not Dragon Con I've been to.
Well, that's because you're married. and
Well,
old.
also, we're a reality-based track, so we shut down at like 1. All that hooliganism is over on the concourse. Go over there.
Well, no, I shut down the Concourse Stage. Well, our last show's at 10 o'clock, so we're done by midnight because I go to bed. I'm old, and
Yeah, I
I've done
know.
for a really long time, and I
We have to
generally I want to go to bed unless there's a band, unless there's an act that I really want to see, because a lot of the main stage acts that come through, I'm a fan. And I want to go see see their show. Brittany Bendrum actually is coming, is going to be there this year. She's the lead singer for the band I Scintilla, which personally they're I've known them for years, but I'm personally a big fan. And so whenever they come, I make sure that I'm going to their show, afterwards. And so we have the Concourse Stage zipped up so I can get up there to see, my band. So, but we try it, but that is what we do and one of the things that we do not do is that we try not to bleed over into any of those main stage shows, and really be able to separate the music, so that people then know that they if they want to see more music, then they can leave my stage and they can go, to the Marriott or just upstairs into the Centennial, and have a big show, that they can see. So it's a nice segue, that runs into. So
I was just looking up, the Galactic Empire is going to be at Dragon Con this
yes.
year.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who don't remember or say, wait, that might sound familiar. Yeah, about 2016, they blasted the internet with their amazing metal rendition of the Imperial March. And it was like my phone ringtone for a long time. They are going to be amazing.
Oh,
is that going to be a main stage or a concourse band?
They'll be main stage. They're main stage. They're really, they're getting in terms of logistics and just the crowd and the setup. There are certain main stage bands that we can accommodate, but there are others that, there's just no prayer. I don't have the technical equipment or anything to do them justice.
Right.
But there are bands that you would never think of that perform on my stage. I Scintilla is a good example of that. They are a Chicago thrash band. They are an absolute burn the place down, high energy, blow the doors off thrash band. But when they came, the very first year that they came to Dragon Con, this was about 2016, no, it was probably about 2016 or so, they actually recorded an acoustic version of one of their albums specifically for my stage at Dragon Con. And it's a completely different show. Like, it is an absolutely completely different show that they put on. And that's kind of like what we've tried to do with Concourse Stage, which is you've seen these guys, you've seen this band on stage, but come down to the concourse and you're going to get this band in a very, very different way. And I think that that's really what our claim to fame has been, with that. Is that this is a band that you've seen that's made your ears bleed, but now they're going to come down with acoustic instruments, and we're going to get intimate. We're going to have a nice,
we're going to get to know each other.
Yeah, we're going to sit on the floor
and scoot closer, scoot
closer. And I have to give the shout out to, the concourse crowd that comes down every year is so very, very, very accommodating, and they're pretty well trained now. Is that, I put a strip of tape down on the floor and they know that their butt goes in front of it. And that's the way that it goes. It's great though. And that is a part of, I think, one of those the million little things that make Dragon Con different than any other convention literally on the planet, is that we're all looking out for each other. Everybody wants everybody to have a good time. There's none of this zero sum, type of stuff that you tend to see, in some of the other conventions and things like that. I'm not denigrating them, but our entire, reason for being is that the bands, the media guests, the entertainers, the members, the fans, the volunteers are all there really for the same reason, as we want to spend the weekend together.
Yep.
And, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. And then they get up on stage and they blow us out the door. So I think that's, a lot of fun too.
I've always said that I have never felt like I couldn't yell help at Dragon Con and not have a gazillion plastic swords drawn in my
Oh yeah,
in my need for help.
right.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, those wrapped weapons are no longer going to be wrapped. We can break them.
Right. Well, it's like, don't pick a fight with a Klingon. He may have been waiting his whole life to kill you.
Yes, and a whole platoon of Klingons, Marie just said.
Well, beside the mugger.
So, from a logistics standpoint, because we have to kind of maintain our crowds, right? Our rooms, our lines. You don't necessarily have a room.
No, it's an open area. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you maintain your crowds to where it's not a fire hazard?
We have there again. I put very brightly colored tape on the floor, and that's a traffic lane, and it's also an ADA lane.
Yep.
We try and make sure that we finally gotten the tables away from facing the concourse stage because it was the traffic
laws
would back up, right?
Crazy because we are in front of the art show, and we're at the base of the escalators and the stairs. So our area for performance is kind of a mushroom. It starts in front of the stage and it kind of billows out to the entrance and the exit for the art show. But there's a tremendous amount of pass-through traffic that acts that perform in a room or in a ballroom don't get, because people are on their way to the art show, or they're on their way to the filk room, or they're just coming downstairs to see what's going on. And so we have really heavy foot traffic, but my volunteers are very, very, very good at nudging the audience along. And I come out from time to time and just ask people to move forward, that we have to keep those areas open for our differently able folks to come through. And also it makes for a more intimate experience, is to get up just as close as we can get them there. Sometimes it frightens.
To know your neighbor.
So they get a little worried, and they're like, they're coming closer, and it's like, yep, there are no monitors between you and the audience, and they are literally at knee level.
Oh,
and
yes.
So, but I have to say, my volunteers do a great job, and they are always out in the crowd, kind of directing traffic and making sure that people are able to walk through and they're able to experience. If they're there to listen, then we kind of move them to the sides, because our PA has 180 degrees range, so there's not a bad space.
Nice. That's
area.
right.
So we've got those Bose towers.
I was going to say, it's the Bose towers.
Right. It's the same old Emerald Rose. We hauled all over the country.
All over the place.
So I've got two last questions. Sorry there.
I have one too.
All right, hit yours. What's yours?
No, well, mine was you and I have been going to.
You're already married, and we've already gone through this time.
Damn it.
Even if we run away to another island, somebody will see us.
Somebody will find us.
Shane is a big man, and I am not.
He is. No more kisses on the beach for us.
He gets kidney stones. It keeps him from flying. You'll be fine.
You and I have been going to Dragon Con for more years than we probably care to admit. What's your favorite Dragon Con memory?
My favorite Dragon Con memory. Wow,
I know. I have one connected to you.
It's I think that, honestly, I think that maybe my favorite memory was when we performed at the Yule Ball many, many years ago. Fiverr, with the one ring, was still with us. And she was actually involved in coordinating the Yule Ball. It was such a different experience for us to perform, and the crowd was just huge, just absolutely huge. But I'll lump that in with it's not my favorite Dragon Con memory, but it's a group of memories, and it's a thing, and it has to be those parties at Brie. It had to be the evening at Brie. There were thousands of people, and watching 350 people do the Macarena.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Gig was just the coolest thing ever. And I got to tell you, my wife, Ash, is the one who started that.
I did not know that. How did I miss that lore?
The thing is because, she's as much of a geek as
Such a
anybody out there. And she started doing the Macarena and other people picked it up. And, we're doing a very, very silly Irish tune. And it became this thing that turned into its own.
It took a life of its own.
It just grew legs and grew arms and legs. And the next thing you know, we would have 250 people doing this in the ballroom. And I think that, on my dying, on my deathbed, it'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to tell my grandchildren this is, yes, I've seen 300 people doing the Macarena to an Irish jig. And they're like, yeah, Grandpa, just get on back to bed there,
Sure.
But yeah, it's that group of memories. It's really hard to pick one out with that. Gollum dancing the Macarena, exactly, from Marie. That's great.
I remember your wife and I were sitting on the floor. You were performing where they play Werewolf now.
Oh yeah,
in the motor lobby, and they were talking about you going to the Oscars party.
The first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was like, "You really think so?" I'm like, "Oh yes, oh yes."
That was fun. Yeah,
it was a good memory.
Oh yeah, we played in the motor lobby.
Yes.
That was one of the first evenings at Bree. I think it was 2002, I believe it was. And we got down there and there were people literally sitting on each other's shoulders and they were trying to stuff us all into a room that held 60 people. And
it was not going to work.
No way. There were 300 or 400 people sitting in the hallway. So we just moved it out to the motor lobby itself. And that was when they asked us if we wanted to come that first year and go out to the Oscars. And we were like, let's think about yes. Yeah, we'll do that. And that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that literally spanned continents. That was, we actually developed great friendships with the cast and the crew of the movies, through that. And the One Ring was just so great to give us that opportunity. And it launched, it really turbocharged Emerald Rose's career at that point. And it is an example of how, a funny thing happened on the way to the con, sort of story. And we're dorks who like really did come up through the ranks. I mean, we're just a bunch of dweebs who played music, and we started off playing Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. And, then it was a 20-year whirlwind, and we were able to retire on the highest note that we possibly could. We did our final show at Dragon Con, and it was exactly the way that we wanted to retire.
So that was one of my questions. 2018 was the last show. We are 4 years away from 2028. Is there a 10-year reunion maybe in the talks going on?
Well, we have these days we have logistical issues.
They're in different states.
I am the only member of Emerald Rose who still lives in Georgia. Both Logan, Brian, and Larry have retired, or they haven't retired, but they've moved to Florida. And Arthur lives in Virginia. Yep. And so it'd be a little bit difficult for us to get together to practice. I don't ever say no. And, being the guy who's, at Dragon Con every year, I think that I could arrange to have a spot for the band if we decided to do it. But honestly, it's, with the way that it's been, it would be, I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes. I have always, told the guys myself, if we wanted to come back and do this, of course, it would be a giant, thing. But, getting back together and, dusting off the old, vocal cords.
Throw liquor bottles, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
maybe 10 a.m. on Thursday.
But the thing is that if it, 10 a.m. on Thursday, thanks, Andrew. I saw
by
that.
2028, Wednesday is going to be the new Thursday or whatever. So we'll have programming Wednesday night, and yes, we'll have to do stuff.
The only one awake at 10 a.m. is Arthur.
Right. No, not me. And I don't do that to my musicians. I sure wouldn't do it to myself. But everything's within the realm of the possibility. If enough people, if there was enough of a groundswell, there's always a possibility that would happen. But I can't speak for my mates, with any of that. Clyde would be there, because he's there anyway.
Okay, all Emerald Rose fans, let's speak this into existence in 4 years. Just saying.
Right. That's what we could be looking at that possibility. Now you got to be looking at that also. I'll be 60 something, and my boys will be in their 70s.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were the youngin.
I'm the baby. Yeah, I'm the baby.
But it makes for a documentary of y'all filming how you work on coming back together, the practice, knocking the dust off everything, and then the big one time only at Dragon Con 10-year reunion show, and then you sell that in perpetuity for all the grandkids to live on.
Right. Well, that's we call that the long tail. That's a part of the marketing. That's a part of the marketing room, as a matter of fact, is we call it the long tail. We have one of the silliest songs that we ever wrote, Never Split the Party. Is if you go on YouTube, I can't believe what has happened with this, and there are millions and millions and millions of eyeballs and thousands of tributes to this song. There are gaming podcasts. There's actually a game called Never Split the Party.
Nice.
I need to get to this about licensing, but
it's just the little things.
It's unbelievable. We've been turned in. I mean, the members of the band have been turned into My Little Pony characters. We have been. I saw one where we were all female demons.
I haven't seen that.
And I spent an entire Saturday. That's how I discovered this. I was like, oh my God, what has happened here? We just literally started this whole thing off with a brick film, and there are like professional level videos that have been made, with this song, and it is far and away our most successful song. It's not the chin strokey stuff that makes you sit down and think about your place in the universe. It's like, no, this is a song about an actual Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we had, and the song is actually about all this terrible stuff that went wrong during this campaign, and like everything in the song actually happened. So it's based on a true story.
I just want to say the Facebook chat is on fire tonight, and we love all of you, particularly Andrew.
That is really good.
Well, here's another one we go quite a ways back with. Andrew and I have known each other for since we both had more hair than we do now, and so but we go way back. We actually worked on a couple of other really interesting things back about in the early 2000s, and I was actually able to work with Andrew on a whole lot of other things that weren't necessarily fandom based, but yeah, we've done a whole lot of stuff back in the day. So, and he knows this as well as anybody. So, no photos, no videos, none of that.
Back before there was social media like there is now.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, where would you like people to find whatever you'd like them to find on the internet?
I have pictures. Okay. Anyway.
Right. I have some that I'm holding out for big money for people that I know.
Oh yeah.
That's it's one of those deals. But yeah, we have a trove of funny pictures from years gone by. We're going to run from 1 to about midnight. There will always be something going on, down there. But we've got great bands coming through. We have some bands that have been there, on and off for years. But I am really excited about our newer bands that have come through this year. I think people are going to have a really good time. We have a little different in terms of different bands in terms of genres. Like I said, we've got like the Killbillies, who are like Newgrass. We have goth folk out of Brooklyn. We've got a band I think that performs at the Renaissance Festival here in Georgia. called the Bearhead Bards.
Yes.
And of course, we have Beth Patterson returning, who is, a force of nature in her own right, and one of my favorite people on the planet. Actually, I really, really am always happy to see her back when she comes back. Mikey Mason will be back on our stage, and Mikey
I saw that. Yeah.
There's it's one of those things that he's they call him a filk, and he is a filk performer, but he's also a stand-up comedian, and one of the most gifted songwriters that I have met in a very, very long time. He does a great job. So, but yeah, we're going to have a great lineup. We'll have about 26, 27 shows all together. And, I'll tell people just come down and be ready to drink and party, but stay in front of the yellow tape. So, or else we'll have to get barked.
And buy band merchandise and CDs.
Buy band, yeah. And I do want to
CDs?
I do want to say that to everyone out there this is the way that they support themselves.
Yep.
One of the hallmarks of DragCon is people ask to come, and many of these bands, this is what they do for a living. And one of the reasons that I browbeat the audience, at every show, which is give them money. The way that you show any artist that you love them is to give them money. And you can tell them how great they are and tell them how they saved your marriage or whatever else, but help me pay my mortgage. And I know that you love me at that point, because money is love to an artist.
Even though they don't know that, it's true.
Right. Well, we're trying to fix that, though.
That's right. Charles and I, we're on a mission here.
We are on a mission to get everybody to be awesome together, and that's that relationship with the audience. We can't create and do what we do without audience support, which is not a cue for me to go into audience support. I am going to go into what's going to be happening next week. I have been in digital media. In August of this year will be 20 years as a professional digital media creator. So thank you. And next Wednesday, the 7th, at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on DC Digital Media Track. If you're on YouTube, you're on Twitch, on Facebook, just right here, right now, that's where it is. And we'll be in all those places. And I'm going to have the show that actually gave me my start, the one that I discovered in early or mid 2004, as podcasting was a brand new beast coming up into the world. And they're going to come and share stories about how dumb I was and how they're surprised I made it this far. And Phil Keating's going to come and do the interview part of it.
Cool.
Being one of my he's been over the last 10 years or so, he's been one of my creative partners. And so new partners meet old partners. And it's going to be almost like the ex meeting the new wife, but in a better way, hopefully. And we're going to have a special guest on as well with that. So that's going to be next week. I'm excited for it. Then after that, Tyra, who do we have?
On August 14th, we're doing Newbie Night. We're bringing in one of our newest volunteers, Tyler, and Nerdy Body, who's one of our new panelists, is going to be her first Dragon Con. So as she said, we'll be popping her cherry for Dragon Con this year. She's very excited. She's going to be in a couple of panels with us. And hopefully, Michael Faulkner from the Dragon Con Newbies Walking Tour on Thursdays will be dropping in to tell us a little bit more about what they do and why, if you're new at Dragon Con, or even if you're not, taking that Thursday tour can make you know things, like where the secret food court is that really has nothing to offer.
Right. But it's open.
But it's open. I think it has.
I haven't been there in years. When I was there, it was like, I had some decent food back. It's probably been.
I think it has a Dunkin' Donuts that closes like at 10 a.m.
Oh.
It's like the Caribou. The Caribou in the hub closes way too early. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. And my Starbucks is gone on Peachtree Street. So I'm just going to be over here in the corner. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
the line for the Marriott is insane.
Yeah, no. We have Jittery Joe's at the Ritz.
We have Starbucks at the Hilton.
Well, then you can get me Starbucks in the morning.
Mm-hmm. We have Starbucks at the Hilton, yeah.
I have people who bring me Starbucks. I don't go, do you know who I am? No.
Why are they bringing me Starbucks?
I go get it myself.
We make coffee in our room, so we bring a kitchen. And so
I pre-cook
everything, and I bring a refrigerator and extra microwave, and all that stuff. But we try and eat in the room because
It's crazy.
and I love the food in the Peachtree Center food court. But just trying to get down there and get back and all.
It's
the
a
other
3-hour adventure, easy.
Yeah, no.
Well, and the way that Murphy just, hates my guts is the second I sit down, it's like, the speaker's on fire. We need you to get back here. Something.
Or fire marshal. Who knows?
Something having to do with fire. Yeah, there's something having to do with fire. But also it's a good respite to go back to the room and, just be able to sit down and get a few minutes to, to get something to eat. And we eat well. I'm Mr.
That's
C.
important.
Mr. C brings the food, so it's
Mr. C knows how to cook.
So, it's,
so the 14th is newbies. The 21st is going to be Charles, me, and Scott Moore talking about this year's Dragon Con.
With the schedule and the anticipation,
it's going to be great.
There's been another panel added.
What?
We'll get to talk about it. It's getting talked about and locked in. It's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be fun.
We're excited.
Then after that, what happens, Tyra?
There's Dragon Con, and I might be going live Wednesday at Dragon Con. I don't know yet. Haven't made up my mind, but I'll be downtown at the Ritz, so I'll get a drink and see what happens. I might find Charles. Who knows? I mean, he is the track director. I'm not even a volunteer. I'm just here.
You're an eternal goddess. How about that? So,
best money I ever spent.
Thanks for coming on tonight and opening up the world of Dragon Con to me. It's been amazing.
I love you, Clyde.
Love you too, Tyra. I love you too, Charles.
I've been informed, though. I have been informed in the private channel. I'm going to call you Mr. Sweetie from now on. So there's that. Thank you, bud. Come on next week and check us out. It's going to be awesome.
It is. Are we not live? He never tells me.